Finally found time to work on the videos a little. As you know, I've had problem with the central lubrication on the forwarder. If you do have any lubrication schematics for either of the machines, I have Valmet 911.3 or 860.3. Please contact me, leave a comment. I would like to get hold of them. They do exist, but from Komatsu they are hard to get by because they were never digitalized on these older machines. Or if you have good knowledge about the lubrication systems on these forest machines, I have a few questions further down into the video. Please view the video and try to reply to them. Thank you very much. Started searching for the fault by unbolting the unit. I had the wrong long Allen socket with me, but I could solve it with an Allen key that reached in there and a ring wrench to hook onto it and a plier for the leverage, because the unit needs to be loosened for it to be possible to undo the pressure relief valve that is just pushing out all the grease because it's stuck somewhere. One of the spreader blocks have a block somewhere, but we hooked it up and just hand cranked it, and it's stupidly hard to press it. We could force it to go past the point where it was stuck, I think, because that pin, there is an indicator pin on one of the blocks that lets you know if it cycles. Decided to remove the unit and the box holding the unit to get access to the blocks that are bolted to the back of this box that is incredibly heavy. Sure, it might need to be heavy duty if a little branch kicks it, get pushed up there, but it feels like it could have been a little less heavy. I removed the first spreader block that was off camera so I could start testing. It just spreads to three location. I think that has been faulty also. I'm not even sure if it's used to spread to three location or if the base of the crane used to be fed from some block up on the crane. That's why I'm looking for the schematics. Tested hooking it up to the feeding the base of the crane, that has no resistance, and then the line feeding up to the crane itself, and then this line feeds the block that's still left on there. And here I messed up a little also later, and the resistance was in that lower, the big block left on the machine that feeds the articular center part of the machine and so on. I did a quick test on that small spreader block because I hadn't really figured things out, and that's partly why I messed up, but who knows, it could have been messed up since before. Because we needed to use the machines a little more before continuing. I took a little strap and just hooked up the blocks so they were secure. So we used the machines a little more because we felt like we have gotten some lubrication to most of the points on the forwarder, at least by now, so decided to run them a few more hours before, while it was daylight, and rather wrench in the dark than operate in the dark. So here I messed up because I just undid all the hoses here so I could start testing them one by one. I hadn't realized that this has like different amounts of grease to different ports. That's partly why I'm looking for the schematics. I was really lucky. Only one of the hoses was stuck on there, and that the adapter that bolts into the block itself started spinning. And since it was only one of the, I can undo all the rest and start spinning the block around, and then that could be broken apart and the adapter could be moved back. And then started the tedious process of starting to eliminate where the block is. And it's no surprise, it was the last hose that was replaced, but more of that later. I think I've had faulty hoses. So everything gets super greasy very fast, and it was a little bit on the cold side, so it was a struggle testing all of them, but could rule out most of them that were still. I feel like most of the places take quite a lot of force to lube. It could have been the cold also making it a little harder compared to the excavators that are super easy compared to these machines, but they also mainly run in the summer. It was the feed line that is feeding down to the lower joint in the articulated midpoint of the machine, or where it pivots to turn. And we undid the hose and connected the temporary hose directly to it, and it takes grease easily. And I started doing a little bit of research regarding the hose, because I had a little piece of leftover hose, because they have these screw-on connections, so I could just connect that up and see if that worked. And it took a lot of force to start feeding any grease out through a open hose. Something is not correct, but eventually grease started flowing, but I needed to investigate a little further, and it turned out that it had started coming out in between the outer protective layer and the inner layer that I think is supposed to hold the pressure, and then there is a weave, some kind of fibers in between them to help hold it out. So I started cutting open the hose to see what was really going on there, but I couldn't find any real defects like that. And eventually took off the screw-on connection. It turned out that the inner part of it had been able to start twisting, and it feels like the layers are not connected, and on the other it should be some parts later further up on the hose felt like it had more of a little bit of a glue in between, so I think they have had issues on manufacturing. And here I checked the big block and started realizing my mistake, that they feed different amounts of grease. And from the first visual, it seems like there are 6 minimum feed, 4 middle feed, and 2 of the outlet feeds a lot more grease. So the question is, where are they all connected? If you have good knowledge what points on the machine like this should have the most grease, middle grease, and minimum grease, please write a comment and let me know. I will do a list in the description with the different places I tried to put them. I wasn't really able to fully confirm where they were at, so I will have to look over this better, but that will be for summer maintenance. It's up and running by now, so had found kind of a manual for these blocks. The simpler block only have like 2 lines of ports or holes in them, and they feed the same amount. If you want extra grease at some point, you have to skip a place and put a plug in there, and it will get the double amount. This one is a more advanced spreader block, and it has these pins in them, and they come in 10 different lengths, I think, but in this block itself there are 3 different lengths, and 6 of them are the longest, that gives you the minimum amount of grease, and 4 are a middle length, and 2 are shorter and give maximum amount of grease, or maybe you can have an even shorter one, I'm not sure. Showed my dad the difference in the amount of lube coming out of the different ports on the big spreader block, and we did a little bit discussion about what point should have the most grease, and that would help out with schematics, how it should have been connected from the factory. Have also borrowed home from a friend of my dad a wood processing machine. I think that has been up in some old video from some years back, and as usual when we rent this machine, we find a few things that could be repaired a little bit, and we usually try to make sure it's in better condition when we return it than when we started using it. It's best to do the repairs beforehand, but I am not gonna cover any of that in detail. And here is that small spreader block that separates between it has 3 outlets, and it also has the indicator pin that things are working. And here I might have messed up back when the crane was broken, and put things back in the incorrect place, or what I think is the incorrect place, because it has 2 ports open on this side. It has these plugs that I think adds extra grease to the plugs below it, and I did a good cleaning up. And then I hooked it up and started pumping to see exactly how much grease it feeds out, and you can't really see the backside. On the other side, that's what feeds that big block that feeds the base machine. And here there are 2 ports, and the right one here feeds a lot more grease, and that one, as it has been connected lately on the machine, just feeds the base of the crane. And the left one here that gives out very little grease feeds the entire rest of the crane, and I'm pretty sure I want more grease to the different spreader blocks up on the crane than just the base itself. That's how I'm gonna reconnect it, at least for now. Let me know if that's stupid and the base need a crazy amount of grease. Most of it seems to be pushed out from around it. That's why I feel like that gets way too much grease, and the crane has been looking a little bit dry, so I think I should do what I'm saying here. The latch closing the box has been, well, it's actually mainly the little tab that has been kind of twisted where it hooks onto, so it hasn't really been closing very good, so we're gonna look at that. I had complained about the hoses being defective or something was wrong, and got to talk to an expert. This is not the Lincoln original part. They sell a different brand, and I have no clue what brand the hose is. It has some markings on it. If someone is interested, leave a comment. I'll look up the precise brand. And they said I had done things wrong, that I had bottomed it out. You should only screw it down a little bit, the outer part that you first add before you jam in that pointy thing. And they had a little bit of a different shape, the parts they were selling that was supposed to go with the hose. So I decided, I did 4 tests here. This is all with the new hose I received. I tried both bottoming them out, both the style I already had and what I had purchased from them that was supposed to be the correct. I could not replicate the problem I had no matter what I did. I've even gone to the length of cleaning out all the grease and brake cleaning it out to install it dry, and I cannot replicate the troubles that I've had. The outer black part isn't really stuck there, but this threaded material is kind of glued onto the inner white pipe that should contain all the pressure. And I got the feeling that the thread is not secure to the inner part on the hose I deem as faulty. I still have more of that that's still on the machine, because that ended up being left on there for now, and I will retrieve that later and maybe conduct some more tests. Looked at adding a little bit of a plastic lip as a support, because I think the hinge is a bit weak for this beefy box, and it might have taken a hit in the past at some point, so we felt like this would be good to help, that it kind of forces it to lift it and close it properly, so it's easy to close it. This was gonna cause us issues later. Also removed that weak hook on point for the latch that closes it. Gonna beef that up, cut out a piece of thicker material that we will get welded on there. bolted the plastic lip in place, and see how that goes. And a few welds and a little bit of paint was added also. And we had received more snow, so I also took away some of the snow, because the machines have seen some use even while we have issues with the lubrication. Had to open up the cab and also lift the oil tank to get access to replace that hose that is blocked or having issues. This time around I didn't remove all the covering around it. I rerouted it outside of the rest of the bundle. I opened up the back of the machine because I wanted to start figuring out which hose goes to where, depending on these big where it feeds more grease. So, and I haven't figured out all of them. I will look at it better here. Next to the white zip tie, you can see the bulge. It has started pushing grease out into the outer layer, so I guess it's badly twisted here and forces grease out where it shouldn't be. Replaced a whole bunch of hoses up on the crane earlier, and no issues with any of them that I have seen. Tried feeding grease into a few of them to start trying to mark out which one goes where. That's why I would like the schematics, and once I was happy that I had figured out most of the points, some of them I put back on there a little bit on a gamble. We could start lowering things back down and start connecting the blocks again. It's 12 hoses that are supposed to be connected to the lower block, and eventually had all of them and could fit that upper block. And here I had tried installing a connector dry. I had cleaned it out, brake cleaned it, everything, to see if I could replicate the problem of twisting. So here everything was dry when I jammed it in there with force. Took more force than when you had lube there, but no indication that it causes a twist. We had also cut a little bit of a slot in the box to be able to hoist it up and secure it with a strap while we were able to bolt the blocks on the back side back in place. It will help out next time when it's taken off, because it's coming off this summer again, I guess, to for sure know where to connect all the hoses. Turned out connecting the blocks to the back of the box was quite a struggle, but eventually had them on there. Just to find the next problem, that we can't fit the box now, because the box that contains a fire extinguisher gets hit by that plastic lip we added to support the lid. So we decided to remove that for now. And that was a struggle, because some of the bolts had nuts on the back side, but eventually it came away. We'll need to look at that this summer also. Once that was removed, it was easy to bolt it back into place. Got a little bit of a scare. It refused to turn down the ladder to climb into the machine on the harvester, but luckily it was just a branch there. I was worried I'd been climbing on some stump and bent something, but it was an easy fix. Just remove it. And we have received enough snow for this winter by now. It feels like we have received more after this also, so there is enough snow, that's for sure. Back to I needed to do some adjustment to the latch now that there is a proper hook to hook it onto. Hook up a clamp for the electrical wiring, connected the unit, and before it was bolted back in the place we turned the ignition on and gave it a forced cycle to see that it doesn't push any grease out again. And here you can see the small indicator pin that's on the first block that moves now at least, and there is no indication that it pushes anything out, so that's fixed for now. As I've said multiple times, I would need to look at it more this summer to figure out if I have everything connected correctly, and I hope I have someone with good knowledge about these units, or maybe someone is sitting on one of those lubrication schematics that could help out. If you have something to a similar machine, please reach out to me in the comments. Thank you very much.